Hello and welcome back to another Greenhouse learning session on different SENs and tutoring, and this one is about cognitive developmental delay. So in this video, we'll be looking at what is CDD, how it affects learning, tips on tutoring students with CDD, and how to assess CDD students. So unlike the other SENs we've looked at, CDD is definitely the most broad and wide scale. So there's lots of different factors which you need to consider if you're tutoring a student with CDD. So again, like the other videos, here's a few definitions. I would really recommend that you pause and read through it. This is just a general overview on cognitive delays and how they are caused and different ways in which it can affect. And then we move on to how CDD can affect different students. So here we've got motor delays. So this is like moving and more physical based. So again, when you're tutoring and if your child has a motor delay, then it's about tailoring the sessions to for that need. And then we've got a social, emotional, and behavioral delays. So again, this is linked to different SENs like autism or like ADHD. So it can just be one part of the child's SEN. So again, this is a lot more like autism, where the child has problems processing their emotions. They lack a lot of social skills, and they can show a lot of different undesirable behaviors. And then we've got speech delays. So this is where the child will have trouble communicating. So then again, it's about making sure that you can deliver your tutoring the best to suit this delay. If a child has trouble with speech, then you need to make sure that you can still understand how the child works and how the child is processing the information, not using those clues. So let's break this down. So it can affect mental, movement, and speech skills. Each child will have different needs. So again, like other ones, but this is probably the one where it's most broad because there's so many different aspects to it. So you need to really understand how the cognitive delay is affecting your students and then what you need to be doing to deliver the best tutoring for that student. And you'll probably have to adapt your teaching style massively. So if you are not experienced teaching SEN or CDD children, then you'll have to come up with a lot of different ways because most of the time the sitting down desk work will probably not be the best way to deliver the information for CDD children. And it is a very broad spectrum. So there are lots of different things to take into account when planning your sessions. And like I say, it can have lots of other links with different types of SEN. So you need to make sure you understand the whole SEN that your student has. So how this affects their learning. So it can affect it in many different ways. So it affects it in physical, speech, and cognitive. So it's about, again, understanding which one your child presents and how to then plan effective tutoring. And then how they are processing their information. So again, in the first few sessions, you need to be looking at how the student works, how they are working out the information and the questions, and then planning your tutoring to suit that style. And also, again, like we said with ASD students, they may not be able to explain how they are feeling. So it's about understanding their different clues and their visual clues and being able to work around that. So being able to understand how your student is feeling when they can't necessarily explain it. And some students may not be able to use certain equipment, so it's about planning around that, or unable to see resources. So again, you need to be planning your tutoring to fit them. They can also have incredibly low ability depending on the CDD they have. So when you're planning work in the first few sessions, you need to be taking that into account. And then like ASD students, it can become very frustrating for them. So it's about understanding their different triggers and making sure that your sessions are limiting those triggers as much as possible. So tutoring students with CDD. So again, I said this a lot, but it's because it's such an important point. You really need to be able to understand how your student works and processes information. And you need to be creating information which suits them in the best way. So using the first few sessions to just watch how they work and just observe, and then make sure that you're planning your lessons to fit how they can work, and prepare for heavily differentiated work. So what I like to do is I like to start the work a lot lower than I think it is, and then build up, because that's better than starting high and then working down. Because with the lower work, you might be able to find certain gaps in the knowledge and then build up from there. And like I said in the last slide, it's having work suitable for their needs. If they're unable to hold certain equipment, they're unable to see certain resources, then you need to make sure that your lessons are accounting for that. And come up with a lot of creative ways of tutoring. So like I said in one of the first slides, behind desk work may not be the best way of delivering that information. So if your student is able to, a lot more physical work, a lot more visual stuff, again, if they're able to. And again, it's about finding what suits them best. And the first few sessions should be primarily about building a good relationship with your student, because you'll find that if they trust you and you have a very good working relationship, it will go a lot smoother. So the first few sessions, don't really focus on the work, don't really focus on delivering any tutoring, just focus on them trusting you and building a good relationship, and then start delivering information. And also another thing just to keep in mind, if you're tutoring a student with severe CDD, is that there's probably a lot more additional safeguarding risks. So you might need to understand a lot more about their triggers. So if you have access to their EHCP, I definitely recommend reading through it and really understanding your student, and then eliminating as many of those risks as possible. So assessing students with CDD. So assess areas for improvement in the first few learning sessions. So as soon as you get on to delivering the information and seeing how your student works, set a few small goals and then slowly build up towards them. And especially when you're first starting out, make sure that there's just very good achievable goals and build up from there, and then start seeing the slow improvements. Yeah, so start small and build towards them. So you need to be making sure that you have a very clear idea of how you want the student to improve, and in the different areas you want them to improve, and make sure that you're translating to the client how you are going about the tutoring and the pathway in which you're creating. And also, especially with more severe CDD, students have a focus on building life skills. So in a lot of realistic circumstances, some students may not be building towards the GCSE or the A-level type areas. So make sure that if you're teaching maths or reading, it has a focus for their life skills. So I like to have a focus on money and time telling and stuff that they will use in their day-to-day lives, and stuff which will give them a lot more independence. And also repeat a lot of content. So I find that a lot of the time I need to revisit certain things because maybe the student has forgotten them, or because it's been such a long time they've just forgotten how to work stuff out. And also it's about not assuming that just because they get it right one time that they will repeatedly get that right. So be 100% certain that your student understands and then move on. And then again, in all of them, lean into their areas of interest. It's really, really important that they are enjoying what you are tutoring. So if you have a focus on their interests, then lean on that. So one of my clients is loves animals, so I always make sure that a lot of the content I teach is animal-based because she just finds that a lot more engaging. So thank you very much for watching, and the last video will be on interventions.